Now we will see the structure of human eye. You must be wondering why we should study human eye in image processing. It is important to know how human visual system works when we are studying image processing. And another important thing is, who is the ultimate judge in image processing? Okay, human being, right? So he or she is going to decide the quality of the image. So that's why we are going to study this. And henceforth, I'm going to use, instead of user, I'll use a word subject. So whenever I say subjective quality, you should understand it's a quality with respect to the user. Okay. The figure here shows the horizontal cross section of a human eye. This you must have studied in biology. So I'm just going to talk about the parts which are required to understand human visual system with respect to image processing. Okay, so the retina is the innermost membrane. Okay, this is the retina where the image formation takes place. So there are discrete light receptors, okay, distributed over the surface of the retina. Now what are these receptors? These are the sensors which will sense the light and convert the light into image. Okay, so there are two types of receptors known as cones and rods. Cones are in the fovea. So cones are located in fovea. This is called as fovea. And each cone, okay, each cone is connected to a nerve end, and cone vision is called as a photopic or bright light vision. Other receptors are known as rods, which generally gives which gives the general and overall picture of the field of view and are not involved in color vision. So night time, when you in dark, if you see something, you are not able to perceive the colors, right? But you will get the overall idea of the scene. So that is due to rods. So several rods are connected to a single nerve and are sensitive to low levels of illumination. And vision due to rods is known as photopic vision or dim light vision. The distribution of receptors is radially symmetric about the fovea. So it is radially symmetric about the fovea. Cones are most dense in the center of the fovea, and while rods increases in density as you go away from fovea. Okay, image formation takes place in the eye. Okay, the image formation takes place in the eye, and in physics you must have studied how the image formation takes place using the optical lens in school, right? So the eye lens compared to optical lens is flexible. It gets controlled by fibers of the ciliary body, and to focus on distant objects it gets flatter. Okay, what I'm saying is, in physics you have done that experiment, changing the focal length, changing the distance between the target and the lens. Okay, you have tried to get you must have tried to get the image on the screen. So whenever the object distance between the object and the lens changes, you used to change the focal length to get adjust the focal length to get the image on a screen. Okay, so in human eye we don't have to do that, right? It is taken care by the muscles. Even if the object is far or near, we are able to focus on that particular object. Okay, so distance between the center of the lens and retina varies from 17 millimeter to 14 millimeter. So if the target is far away, if the target is far away from the lens of the eye, the focal length is generally taken as 17 millimeter. If it is near, then it is taken as 14 millimeter. Okay, so here you can see there is a target shown which is far away from the eye. The distance between the target and the eye is 100 meter, and this is the focal length given, and you have to calculate the height of the target. So you know the three things, you can find out the fourth one, right? Now here you can see there is a plot shown. So this is a distribution of rods and cones in the retina. The solid line is for cones and the dotted line is for rods. The concentration of cones is more at 0 degree. What is this 0 degree? It's a fovea. Okay, here I told you the maximum density is here. Okay, cones are more, so that's why it is shown like this. And as you go away from this fovea, it decreases. Okay, at the same time, okay, you can see these dotted lines. The dotted lines are what? They are rods. So they are absent, minimum at fovea. Okay, and as you go away, the density increases. And there is one point known as blind spot, which is shown here. Okay, where both the receptors are absent. So the image formation cannot take place at that particular location. We can see a very broad range of intensities when we combine rods and cones. Okay, so we can actually perceive a very broad range of intensities as shown here in the figure. So some of it is perceived by the rods and some of it is perceived by the cones. Okay, so the lower intensities are perceived by rods and higher intensities are perceived by cones. We can perceive large range but not at the same time. Means we cannot perceive a dark and bright point simultaneously. Okay. For example, if you enter a dark room, say a movie theater, after the movie is started, you need time to get adapted to perceive, right? So you take time to locate your seat. Same thing happens if you enter a bright room for a particular level of intensity. Okay, so if you enter a bright room, again you will face the problem. You won't be able to. You are not comfortable actually immediately. Your eyes will take time to get adjusted. So for a particular level of intensity, we are actually able to see this range. This see. Now I am taking a particular level of intensity. I am able to see only this much at the same time. Okay, suppose my particular level of intensity is this, maybe I will be able to see only this much at a particular time. Means at the same time I will be able to see this dark point as well as this bright point, but I won't be able to see the entire scale simultaneously at a particular given time. Okay, so we are not able to adapt to see the maximum intensity and minimum intensity at the same time. Regardless of background of light, we should be able to distinguish between the details, like searching a seat in a dark room. That is what the adaptation allows us to do. So there are different experiments in the literature to understand what kind of discrimination we can obtain for different levels of light. So here is one experiment. There is a background light. Okay, there is a background light and we draw a circle at the center. And we start changing the intensity of the circle. Means initially the intensity of this circle and this room or this background was same. Okay, but then we have started adding some intensity to this circle, delta I, small fraction of intensity. Okay, and we start changing the intensity of the circle till user notice that here is a circle in the middle. We can increase making it lighter or decrease making it darker, and then we measure how much change we are able to perceive. The amount of change which we perceive is depend on the background light, and that is what called Weber's ratio. So that is shown in this figure. Now here you can see when we are in the light, very low light conditions, means these are the very low light conditions, right here. When we are in a very low light condition, then we need delta I, that is the change, relatively high. Okay, if we are in a high background light, here we don't need so much change. So in short, when we are in dark room, very small changes in the brightness will not be perceived. We need wider change in brightness to perceive. On the other hand, if the background is bright, then we do not need so much difference in the brightness to distinguish between different objects. This concept is called Weber's law, and it is very important in designing cameras and other image acquisition devices, because if if we want to distinguish between two objects which are very dark, we know that we need a large difference between them. Another important thing is our visual perception depends upon what is surrounded by the object. So there are known these, see here you can see these are known as Mach band. This you must have seen in television. Now you must have seen in different colors. Okay, here we have shown the shades of gray from darker to brighter. So this is the actual illumination. Okay, so this is the actual illumination. But if you notice, okay, here, whenever there is a transition from dark to bright and bright to dark, okay, here at this particular position, here, at each and every transition, actually the difference is constant, but since we compare this with this, our visual system compares, we feel that at the edges the difference is more. Okay, so this is a perceived brightness. Now here also, this is known as example. These are the examples of simultaneous contrast. Now you can see the center part or the center square. Okay, if you only see this, okay, and if you actually check the values, they are exactly same. So the center, we are not changing the center, we are just changing the backgrounds here. Okay, the backgrounds are different, the different shades of green. Since we are changing the background, what we feel at the center became dark. Okay, we feel that center is more darker compared to this, but it is actually, if you see the numbers or intensities, the centers are same. Okay, so this is because of the human visual system. Now here, these are some well-known optical illusions. Okay, you can see here. Can you see a square here? Yes, we can see this. We can perceive a square. Okay, because of our predefined or whatever knowledge we have with respect to square. As soon as I see this image, I feel that there is a square at the center, but actually there is no square, right? Now this here, the circles are not there, but still we feel that there is a small circle here and there is a big circle over there. Now here, these these lines are exactly having the same length, but only because of the direction of the arrows, we feel that this is longer than this. Here, all these diagonal lines are exactly parallel to each other. Okay, exactly parallel to each other. But what we feel, they are not parallel because of the direction of each of this line is different than this line. So we feel that they are not. So these are called as a optical illusions and optical illusions. But this is very difficult for a computer to understand. Okay, why we are studying image processing? Because we want that the machine should be able to behave like a human being, right? The computer should be able to behave and take a decision as human being, as a human brain, and that is very difficult here. Why? Because we have some knowledge, and based on our knowledge we are perceiving the things. So these are the challenges in image processing. Now you must have studied this electromagnetic spectrum in physics. Okay, why we are studying this, why I am discussing electromagnetic spectrum here? Because what is light? Okay, what is it? We are talking about the light. Okay, image processing. We can do image processing in various bands of electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so you know there are X-rays, then UV rays, then infrared, radio waves, microwaves, visible spectrum, okay, and gamma rays. So whatever we are going to study in this syllabus, that is a very small part of the electromagnetic spectrum, known as visible spectrum. Okay, similarly there are imaging satellites which are available in microwaves, microwave band as well as UV band, okay, having different applications. So whatever you are going to study, that in your syllabus, that will be a part of visible spectrum. Now we have seen how the image formation takes place in human eye. We will see how it is takes place in digital cameras. Okay, so when the light falls on an object, it gets reflected back and then it is sensed by a human visual system. Similarly, for cameras also, when the light falls on an object, it is reflected back and then it is getting converted to voltage. So here you can see this is a single imaging sensor. This is one imaging sensor in which the light is falling on this particular filter and then it is getting converted into voltage. Okay, so in digital cameras, they use this type of arrays. It's a collection of single imaging sensors. So the entire sensor goes into this. So it's a collection of all these type of sensors here, and the light is getting converted into electrical pulses, and then it is the image formation takes place. Okay, so if you want to know more, you can follow this link. I have also shared this link on a in a Google Classroom, and after this means the next lecture we will see what is sampling quantization, how the image is converted into digital image, and also we'll see the relationship between pixels. So bye for now.